I became convinced that when we show up on the earth, we show up with an assignment. We've been given an assignment. Everybody gets the same assignment. Most of us don't ever realize it. Most people don't ever, work on it or get it. And I think it's a three-part assignment. I think first thing is to continuously discover and develop who we are. That's why we're here. And that's why other people are in the world, to help us discover that. That's the whole thing about the people you don't like are your most important teachers. So continue to discover who we are. Number two, fully express who we are into the world. Three, in a way that contributes to life with a capital L.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reflections on Living Well podcast, where we explore perspectives on the good life in the 21st century. I am your host, Broderick Rodell. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflections on Living Well podcast. Today, our guest is John Scherer. John is a former combat officer on a U.S. Navy destroyer, Lutheran Chaplain at Cornell University, Gestalt and family systems therapist, graduate school co-creator, author, successful change consultant, and entrepreneur. John brings a unique perspective to his life and work. John is the founder and co-director of Scherer Leadership Center. Business and community leaders from 42 nations have graduated from his executive and leadership development intensives. John is the creator of hundreds of articles and online media, including the Scherer Leadership Report, and is author of Work and the Human Spirit, and 5 Questions That Change Everything. A prodigious writer, his work has been translated into 15 languages. The Stephen Covey organization honored John as one of America's top 100 thought leaders in personal leadership development, and in 2015, the International Organization Development Network recognized him with the coveted Lifetime Achievement Award. Living and working from a base in Warsaw, Poland, he is known around the world for his ability to connect with leaders and frontline staff and bringing about profound individual breakthroughs and workplace-wide transformations. A father of 4 wonderful grown and gifted artistic children, he does yoga, still performs the occasional magic show, and loves to read a good spy novel. Awesome, John. How are you, John?
Great. In fact, I'm doing a speech tomorrow here in Warsaw. I'm doing a workshop for about 25 or 30 senior managers, and the conference is called Magia, which is Polish for magic. And I told the guy, well, do you want me to do some magic? And he said, oh, please. I'm going to actually do some magic at the beginning of my workshop. So
I love it. I love it. What a storied history there. I love reading that bio. And there's more too on the website, everyone. There's a longer bio with more of the John's activities in life. Of course, many successes, but I like to say activities and many experiences from a broad spectrum. And I love that you're still running and doing yoga and magic tricks and all those different things. That's just great. So I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation. But before we jump into what living well means, can you share a little bit about yourself? I know I just read the bio, but I'd like for guests to kind of say something about themselves.
Well,
because it's always a little bit different
we've
than the
talked
bio.
a lot, and there's so many things we could talk about, but people want to know why are you in Poland? Why are you in Warsaw, Poland? And in 2007, I gave a workshop to the World Business Academy in California, and based on my book a couple books ago called Work and the Human Spirit. And about a week later, I got a phone call. This woman said, hello, my name is Dorota Stoyzawacka. Took me a week to learn to say her name. And I have a leadership training company in Krakow, Poland. And I was in the audience in California for your talk. It blew me away. She said, we're about to do a big conference for the top executives from Russia, Central and Eastern Europe, for a big oil company here, Oil and Petroleum. It's like Exxon over here. And she said, would you come and give that same talk? And I thought a chance to go to a former communist country and talk to a bunch of oil executives. about working the human spirit. I was, man, I'll do that for free. I didn't do it for free. Anyway, and she saw the impact on these people because I was saying that you need to bring your whole self to work. I mean, why pretend? Why lock that up? Because in Eastern Europe, under communism and the Nazis, you could work next to somebody and never know anything about their personal life. You might see a wedding
Mhm.
ring or something, but you wouldn't know where if he or she had a family, went on vacation, you wouldn't, because you never knew who to trust. And here's this American saying, you need to bring your whole self to work and be your whole self at work. That's what you need. It's what your colleagues need. It's what your organization needs. And people were crying in the audience, Broderick. So
Mhm.
she says to me, I want to come to Seattle and I want to take your 4-day leadership program. I want to see where this stuff comes from. So she came, did the 4-day program, and she said, on the last day, she said, Yanechka, nobody is doing anything like this in Eastern Europe. If I call you, will you come and do this 4-day workshop, leadership workshop for some of our clients? And I said, sure. So for 6 months, back and forth between Seattle and Krakow and Warsaw. And after 6 months, she said, why don't you just move to Poland? And she was joking, but I thought, I've been single for 10 years. My kids are all grown and gone. What the heck? Why not? So I said, I'll come for 6 months. I'll come and I'll introduce my leadership program, and then I'll come back to America. That was in August of 2008. 2 months later, the entire economy in America just fell apart, 2008.
Mhm.
And nobody was hiring leadership consultants in America. I had colleagues that were bankrupt. And meanwhile, I'm like front page news over there. Nobody was doing it. So the phone is ringing off the hook. So I said, well, I'll stick around for a little while. And then 16 years went by. And I just literally a year ago moved back to Seattle, but I'm back now
Mhm.
to Warsaw to do some follow up work with some of our clients. So I don't know. People want to know why did you go to Poland? I mean, these people here are just incredible, and they needed me. I mean, they needed what I was bringing, and so who doesn't want to be in a situation like that?
That's awesome, John. I love that story. And I'm sure we'll talk about how your views on leadership and all that stuff as we explore your views on what living well
Whatever.
means.
I'll go wherever you want to go, Broderick.
Awesome. Sounds great. So let's go from there. Like, what does living well mean to you? What is that? What is the good life?
You know, um, I grew up in the first 5 years of my life in the parsonage of my grandfather's church. He was a Lutheran pastor, 4 generations of Lutheran preachers. John Jacob Scherer. I'm John Jacob Scherer the fourth. My pop
Mm,
decided to be a newspaper man slash alcoholic, so that broke the chain, gave me a little freedom. But I grew up in my grandfather's uh, home, which was attached to the church, because my pop was off being a newspaper man, and my mom had to make the tough decision: do I stay with my son or go try to keep my marriage together? It's 1940, right? So she headed off
mm,
to keep the marriage together. So I grew up in the parsons of the church, and I remember playing in the front hall, and people would come in to see my grandfather crying and upset, and they would go into his study, and they hour or so they'd come out later smiling and happy and hugging him. And I remember thinking, what the heck is going on in there? That is magic. That is just unbelievable. So I experienced transformation and the significance of interaction that can help people shift their state, shift their lives, change change. I mean, it wasn't conscious at that point, but it imprinted on me. And then when I was a teenager, I became a lifeguard. I was waterfront director and lifeguard. And what does a lifeguard do when people are struggling in the water? They swim out to help people. And I became convinced that when we show up on the earth, we show up with an assignment. We've been given an assignment. Everybody gets the same assignment. Most of us don't ever realize it. Most people don't ever work on it or get it. And I think it's a three-part assignment. I think first thing is to continuously discover and develop who we are. That's why we're here, and that's why other people are in the world, to help us discover that. That's the whole thing about the people you don't like are your most important teachers. So continue to discover who we are. Number two, fully express who we are into the world. Three, in a way that contributes to life with a capital L. So for me, the good life is one where there's a circle of energy. I played in a folk group and then a rock band back in, in the Navy and stuff like that. And on those nights when the audience was loving what we were doing and we were loving the audience, there was this circle of energy. We could have played all night, never gotten tired. So for me, the good life is a circle of energy where there's something flowing between the individual and the field around that individual. It might be the inner circle they have, it might be their community, it might be the whole world for some people. So for me, the good life is a flowing state of exchange of energy. I actually believe in our 4-day leadership program. The program is not in the workbook. It's not in the content. The content gives us something to talk about. While this energy exchange, it's about love. Let's just name it, okay? I mean, I couldn't design a program for the corporate world and have love anywhere in the title. So I called it leadership development. But one time Boeing put, God bless them, they sure need us now. But some years ago, they put all their high potential, their high potential people through my 4-day leadership program. And this one guy engineer for Boeing came up to me. He said, "I know what you're doing here." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "You've created a spiritual development experience, thinly disguised as a leadership program." And I said, "Shh." He said, "I love it. I love it. I love it." So, but I couldn't call it the spiritual development intensive because, no CFO is going to spend, $5,000 to send somebody to that course. So I called it the leadership development intensive, but that's what it is. So for me, the good life is really learning how to love and be loved, and to be able to let that circle of energy flow with a minimum amount of static in the brain, judgments and fear and all that stuff.
That's just great. I am 100% in agreement with you. For lack of a better word, I think the very first thing you said there, I believe that too. That you know, it's our duty to develop and cultivate ourselves. Refine ourselves as individuals so that we can serve life. I love how you say that. Life with a big
Why
L.
else? Why else are we here? Well, some people think
Right?
it's to get as many trophies as you can before you die or something. Okay, all right, that's fine. That's just not how
I
I want to
know.
roll, but go for it.
Exactly. I think that that's just beautiful because when we all have gifts. You're right. We all have gifts. We all have talents, and when we cultivate and develop ourselves, we bring that into the world, and we can serve the world in a way that enhances love in the world. That's my motivating factor as well, John.
That's
Love. It's
great.
all about that. No matter love is what I'm really doing, but I
Yeah.
put all these other
No,
names to
no
it.
done.
Exactly.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's just like at the core of it, it's really about that. How do we maximize that flow, that resonance between ourselves and everything else in the environment? And that's what love is. I think that's one aspect, of one way of looking at love. At any rate, I love that. That's it. That's the good life. That's what living well really means.
You know, Actually, Broderick, I haven't really thought about the questions before. I have 50 years in this work, and some of your questions were really fresh. I really liked it because I just said, geez, I don't know how to answer that question. So some questions are not meant to be answered. They're meant to be just chewed on and soaked in and stuff like that. So I was really intrigued with the stuff you sent me. So wherever you want to go is fine with me.
So, audience, I do send guests a list of questions, and I don't necessarily ask those questions. I just
Yeah.
send a list of questions to get people to think and be reflective. And John just said something really important here, and that is when I ask folks or what the good life is, it's I think it's a process. I think it's unknown. I think it's known and unknown at the same time. And I think that allows us to be open to various perspectives and being open to what's possible.
Let me jump in here. I spend a lot of time with senior executives. I probably spend more time with senior executives than most people I know. And that's my church. That's my congregation now. Those are my people. And they have the same issues everybody else does. But I can't tell you how many people, Broderick, I've worked with, men and women, who got to the top of their organization. They had the trophy, the office in the corner, the trophy house, the trophy spouse, the trophy, they all the money they could ever need and all that. And I said, well, why are you talking to me? What is this conversation about? And eventually they'll say something like, you mean this is it? I thought I was supposed to feel good, feel like I'm done. I got all this stuff. Now what? You know, and then they discover the depth meaning of life rather than the quantitative stuff. And then all of a sudden now they start thinking about stuff that it's embedded in the questions that you're asking. Because, the way you get to the top in many corporations is not by being a profound individual, not by having a philosophy of life, but by being able to make the numbers add up. So, and a lot of people do that and they die having, there's a great quote on C.S. Lewis, I'm sure it said, many people die with their music still inside of them.
Mm.
And I can't tell you how many executives have thanked me after we have this 4-day, executive development intensive thing. And we have this online thing now that's, 3 months worth of deep development. I can't tell you how many of those people with their spouses and partners have thanked me for some kind of, being raised up in some way, having them feel some kind of depth that now suddenly they began to experience in their life. So, at 84, I'm not ready to die yet. I hope I still have some tread left on the tires. But I think I've done everything I could to tap that, to help people tap into that. Oh, at my 80th birthday here in Poland, I was living here. I told the people there, I said, I got an announcement to make. I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire tonight. And they got really pissed off, Sorry, can I say that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That, whatever.
Anyway, I know the Polish word for it too. And they said, no, you can't retire. I said, no, I'm going to retire. I'm going to put new tires on the car so I can go another 100,000 kilometers. And they went, yes, yes, yes. So that's my plan. I'm going to retire.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's so awesome. Isn't that something, I think that's been a common theme, and, people have said it slightly differently. That, when we talk about what is good in life, or what living well means, you know, yeah, you need to have some level of stability, or it's great to have that, some level of stability, financial stability. It's great to have all of your needs met. Nonetheless, the thing that a lot of folks are pointing to when we think about what living well means, or what a good life is, or what represents a good life, it's usually something much more subtle. It's usually something more qualitative.
Yeah.
It's not about how much stuff we have. It's about the quality of my experience as a human being in the context of the environment that I find myself in.
Yeah.
I think that's just something amazing, and I think I'm glad that you brought that up about you're around executives, and executives tend to be quite successful, well off, because just the
They've got
nature of the
every
way it's
they've
structured.
got everything that you're supposed to want. Money, status,
Exactly.
fame, brand, reputation, respect.
Got it.
And they go to bed at night thinking, is this many of them? Is this it? Is this what
Exactly.
I won the game? Now what? And by the way, a lot of Olympic athletes, I've known a few over the years, and done some work with some of them just about this issue. And they, this one guy who was the downhill speed skier, they just go straight down the hill. They're not doing slalom, and they have the helmets that airflow. The difference between the gold medal and last place was the length of a pencil. So there's like 15 skiers in that space. And whoever gets first gets endorsements and, equipment, like, they get all kinds of millions of dollars in recognition. And somebody who was that far behind them in fourth place, nobody knows. So these athletes have trained for years and years and years, devoted their whole lives for this 40 seconds or 50 seconds of life. And they're
Hmm.
and they're that far, and so life is, they're done. Now what? So think of and it's a pyramid. So think of the 90% of the athletes every 4 years have to go back to a life where they quote failed, or they weren't good enough. So how do you find meaning? And as
Hmm.
I've thought about it in the last few years of my life, I think that's why we're all here. And I think that's what I've probably accidentally helped people do. I didn't start out to say, okay, now I'm going to create a program to help people find meaning, but I think that's what happens here. And so
Yes, that's.
you know what I'm saying? So I think living well is all the stuff, eating well. I mean, I've tried to eat well. I'm swimming now. I got hip thing. I ran marathons for a long time. I can't run now, so I'm swimming. I swam the butterfly in college. I'm up to 25 meters now of the butterfly. But
That's
I
great.
finished 25, and you have to get the heart lung machine to put me back. Bring me back to life again. But I'm swimming the butterfly, and so I like to. And this guy in the pool in Seattle said we were swimming, and we stopped, taking a breath, and he said, "That's a butterfly." And I said, "Yeah, not as good as it used to be for me." And he said, you should swim masters, U.S. Man. I used to be a swim coach and all. And he said, "How old are you?" And I said, "You don't want to know." He said, "How old are you?" And I said, 83. And he said, "No." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Geez, you should go out for masters." He said, "You'd win every race." And I said, "Why?" Because there's nobody else in your age group. And I said, "Well, that wouldn't be any fun. Why would I want to do that?" So anyway, I think a good life includes joy and playfulness and hard work, and also challenges, crises, difficult people, difficult situations. Um,
Mhm.
I just finished one of our 4-day programs just a few days ago, and there was a woman in there. This happened for many people who couldn't stand being uncomfortable. That was the big thing that came up for her around certain people, situations. She said she got uncomfortable, and my experience in the Navy, 4 years on a destroyer as a combat officer, I learned to be uncomfortable. I mean, one thing you learn in the military, every day you're scared in certain kind of situations, and every day you're uncomfortable. For about 4 years, I didn't have to think about what to wear, where to live, what to talk about, what to eat. My environment structured all of that for me, which gave me 4 years of a kind of a timeout from my soul
Mm.
to start thinking and come out and say, okay. So I didn't have to think about any of that. I think about other stuff. And there's a
That's
story, we don't have time probably, but there's a story about the night that changed my life when a Phantom jet crashed out in the ocean, and I was designated to be the search and rescue coordinator by the captain of the Enterprise. And I was a stutterer. People don't know that about. Well, can I tell it now for a few minutes, or
Oh yeah,
what would you
please.
rather do?
No, by all means, go for it.
All right,
There's
because
there's something in stories that are important, so go for it.
well, this is true. Some of my stories are not true, as people know, but this is. But the Native American storytellers will say, "I don't know if it happened this way, but the story is true." Right? This one happened this
Yes.
way. Okay, this one's real. So I'm in the Navy, 22 years old, just got out of air control school on my destroyer. I was a stutterer, and every stutterer has certain sounds that block, and mine were the attacking sounds. And so I had tricks to do. I had ways of getting air flowing over my vocal cord. I'd go and then say the hard word. So I was able to kind of sneak. And so when I got to my ship, one of the first questions I had was, "What's her what's her call sign?" Her call sign. And they said hermit. Every ship has a call sign. And I went, "I'm so glad," because I could say the word hermit, no problem. Then we got assigned to the USS Enterprise to be her plane guard, rescue pilots, and look for submarines and stuff. And we had to follow her everywhere. Biggest aircraft carrier in the world. Her call sign was climax. You
Mm.
couldn't have picked a harder word, Broderick, than climax. It just stuck here. So I'm on the radio all day long talking to climax. This is Hermit over. We're out in the middle of the ocean. We're halfway across the Atlantic Ocean on our way from Norfolk to the Mediterranean, where we're gonna, do some stuff. And one night, in the middle of the night, this voice comes over the radio from the Enterprise. "Hermit, this is Climax himself over." Now that means this is the captain of the Enterprise on the
Mm.
radio. He's got 4 of these and a rack of these. I have 1 of these and a name tag. You know, I'm just, there's Hermit Roger over. He said, Hermit, we just lost a Foxtrot 4, F4 was a Phantom jet. We just lost Foxtrot 4, grid coordinates, Charlie Bravo 325 Delta, da-da-da. He said, I hereby designate you search and rescue coordinator. Go find our 2 guys, Hermit. All right, this is Hermit Wilco. Will comply. Out. So I wake up the captain and the XO, and they come to combat, and I'm putting on my headphones and wrapping my legs around the radar scope, getting ready, and the captain says, Mr. Scherer, can you do this? Because I'm right out of school, you know. Now, there's only one right answer to that question, Broderick. You don't say, Captain, I'm a stutterer. I'm not really sure I can do that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I got this. And my heart's pounding. My heart's pounding right now just remembering it. And so I didn't know how to do this. I'd never been trained to search and rescue. I've been trained in how to find track Russian planes. But I'm going through this book, Search and Rescue. I swear to God, like this, I finally figure out what I'm going to do. And then she launches every airplane she's got. Hermit, this is Climax 2-1. I got 2-3 and 2-4 request instructions over. Roger, Climax 2-1. Take Angels 2.5, steer 050, report your state over. Hermit, this is Climax 4-4. I got 4-5, 12 airplanes all at one time, Broderick. Now, I was trained I would never have to control more than 3 airplanes at one time. So I have the helicopters down here. I got the propeller, slow guys here, the bug smashers here, and I got the fast guy, all stacked up in this search pattern of, 1,000 square miles of ocean. And we're trying not to keep those guys from hitting each other. And this went on for hours and hours and hours. And then one of the guys would call if he'd say, Hermit, Climax 2-1, we're bingo. I mean, we're out of gas. We're bingo. And I'd give him an RTB, return to base vector. Here come 3 more. This went on and on and on and on, looking for the 2 guys in the water. And about 2 hours into this, I realized that for the first time in my life, not only was I not stuttering, I hadn't even thought about it. Hadn't even thought about it. It was like, there's 2 guys in the water out there, John Scherer. You get over your, what? This is no time for your neurotic nonsense. Alcoholic father, blah, 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 man. There's 2 guys in the water. Get over yourself. And this went on. Anyway, the sun came up, and one of the helicopters found some debris in the water. We went over. Turned out the guy in the back seat didn't make it out. The pilot goes out first, and didn't make it. So the captain comes to combat, and he says, Mr. Scherer, maybe we should call it off. I said, no, sir, now we know we're in the right area. So I relocated the search pattern. Anyway, a couple hours later, one of the helos, Hermit, this is 325. We got him. So everybody's slapping me on the back and cheering and everything, and I gave all the other airplanes a vector back to the carrier now, and we steamed down the bearing to see if we can render assistance. And a few minutes later, the captain calls on the 1MC. He says, Mr. Scherer, lay to the bridge, get to the bridge. Some guy up here wants to talk to you. And I'm tired. I've been up all night. And, this is the captain. Aye, sir. So I put on my piscutter, go up on the starboard side. Every guy on the ship who wasn't working was standing on the rail. The helicopters hovering in the water, the swimmers in the water with the pilot. The captain says, Mr. Scherer, he wants to know who the air controller was. So I give a wave like this. It's 100 guys there, And he's like, the pilot gets about 2 feet out of the. He's a lieutenant commander, by the way. He was the commanding officer of that squadron. He had 2.5 of these. He gets about 3 feet out of the way, looks at me, and he salutes me. Now you got to understand. I'm so far below him, but he was saying thank you. And I saluted him, and I walked around to the port side with nobody over there but the lookout. And I went back to the signal bags, and I just started to weep. I was crying. Victory. It was tears of victory, Broderick. I remember thinking, I want to be that guy. I want to be that John Scherer, not that anxiety-ridden guy that's scared every time he opens his mouth. I want to be that John Scherer. So it's when I tell the story now, it's like, who are the 2 guys in the water, see, that are so important to you that it'll help you get over all the nonsense you have about yourself. So when these people come to me and they've gotten to the top of the pyramid, the 2 guys in the water, what is my life going to be like now for the next 30, 40 years? That's the two guys in the water that
Hmm.
that calls them to explore stuff they'd never about themselves they've never seen before. So when I said my book is about coming home to yourself, not about changing yourself, it's about coming home to yourself, and this changes everything. It goes back to that night.
Hmm. That's beautiful, John. That's just beautiful. I think that I was going to ask you a question about why is challenge beneficial? I think that story
That's it.
articulates it. It definitely, that story, that's why stories are so important, is that they convey a message that is kind of hard to always put into words. But I think you answered that question before I ask it by telling that story.
All the great spiritual teachers were storytellers. So,
Yeah, that's
my
true.
first book was
Yeah,
on the
that's
parables of Jesus. Yeah.
hmm. Yeah, that's just beautiful, John. Isn't that interesting though how when we're in situations that challenges us, that brings us to the edge, that we can set aside things that we feel like that's in our normal ordinary actions, that we feel like it's impossible to overcome. But when we're in certain situations, and sometimes challenge can put us in that situation, but can we put ourselves in that situation intentionally to overcome?
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Well, if we
um,
don't, Broderick, if we don't do it intentionally, don't worry. Life will put you there.
exactly,
Life will give you
exactly.
somebody that you don't get along with, or some crisis in your work situation. You'll get fired or laid off, or something will happen in your relationships, and something with your kids and all. If you don't have kids, dogs, cat, whatever. There's this. I mean, and there's a great quote from T.S. Eliot: "Everyone gets the experience. Some get the lesson."
Yeah,
Isn't that a great quote?
exactly.
So
Oh,
my
beautiful.
whole thing is every day that we wake up and we go to work, so to speak, even if it's walk over to your laptop, every day we wake up, we're waking up into the dojo where you go to practice. I do a little Aikido stuff, so you go to the dojo to practice or you go to the ballet studio. You wake up into the place where you go to practice your craft.
Yeah,
So these people coming at you, Aikido calls the person attacking you your uke, means your dance partner, your teacher, and you can't be a better tennis player without having somebody over there trying to hit the ball past you, and so your
yep,
opponent is actually helping you raise your game, and so that's what we teach. So when you're in one of these situations, my book is called Facing the Tiger. I got to change the CV. You got a CV a few years ago, few years old. My recent book is called Facing the Tiger, and this is the whole concept that when you have a tiger, why not face it? Because in that facing of the tiger, you not only can resolve something in the real world between you and another person, but you can développer from the French, discover, unleash, unwrap more of who you are in the process.
exactly. That's beautiful. I think because I wanted to clarify with the audience that that when I was saying that we can create those conditions, I'm not saying go out and create unnecessary suffering. What I'm saying is create practices, and I think you hit it.
Exactly. That's
That's
beautiful.
why we practice. We
Yeah.
practice, but when I sit and meditate, it's not fun to just sit there all the time. I enjoy it now at this point, but it's not like I'm exercising a restraint. I'm restraining myself. I'm putting myself in a challenging situation that that's going to allow me to practice and gives me
So
the
true.
opportunity to gain some insight. Whatever that challenge, whatever that practice is, be it martial art. I mean, I play capoeira, and that's the same thing, a similar thing. I'm
Yeah.
being challenged. Challenge me. That challenge is going to allow me to grow. I don't need to go out and do nothing crazy in the world to get a challenge that's going to
Well,
harm me and harm somebody else.
that's
But
what
I can
people who
create.
don't. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
beautiful
that's right.
philosophy, Broderick, and isn't it a shame that our school system doesn't understand that? And I
No.
mean, it's not hard. It's not hard. It just has to be somebody has to think about it and make it happen. You know, to
Mm-hmm.
to I mean, these are meta skills.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
it's not about how to deal with this crisis or that crisis, but how do you deal with crisis in general.
In general.
So instead of helping you deal with this problem, that problem, that's the brown end of the pipe, man. you know,
Mm-hmm.
helping kids deal with the stuff they're doing. That's a symptom. And they need work upstream. They need to figure out what's going on up here that makes them want to do all this crazy stuff.
Right.
So yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely have to put a filter on the end of the pipe, but don't think we solved the problem. The problem's way upstream from there, you know.
Exactly. We're creating through practice, through activities of some sort. We are increasing the likelihood of us, because life is going to bring it to us, like you said.
Yeah.
Don't worry, life is going to bring it to us. Are we ready? Are we prepared for what life
Yeah.
brings? And I think, life is a dance. That's one way of looking at it. And
Yeah.
and if you want to dance well in life, you got to practice dancing. You got to create the
My
situations in your life.
daughter, Broderick, is a ballet dancer in Paris, France. And she was just
Awesome.
in Mamma Mia, by the way. She was the dance captain for Mamma Mia. I saw her
Awesome.
perform, and she just comes out on stage, and I start crying, because I remember this little girl was dancing when she could walk. She was dancing, and she practices every day. She practices. And the other thing that's terrifying to me, I said, sweetheart, I couldn't. She goes to auditions where she's trying out for a role. She puts her heart and soul into 4 or 5 minutes of dancing and singing or whatever, and then she leaves. And there's no feedback. They don't tell you, well, the only feedback is you don't get a call back, or you get a call back. She lives her life the way you described it, practicing her craft every single day, and then she gets accepted, and she's been in 42nd Street, Singing in the Rain, South Pacific, The Wizard of Oz, The Producers. I mean, she's been in all the major shows, so she's performing at a very high level. But she doesn't quit. She every
Hmm.
single day, that kind of and that's her life. See, that's the good life for her.
Hmm.
I'm inspired.
Yeah.
I mean, she's an inspiration for me. I couldn't I
Yeah.
couldn't do what she does. Put myself out there and then walk away and never get any feedback about what I mean. Whether we needed you to be taller or shorter or this, whatever. What is it? You never know. You never know why you were
Yeah.
not selected. So you just keep believing in yourself, putting it out again and again and again.
Yeah. There's this thing I think you might find. There was a phase where I was interested in doing leadership development stuff or just in general personal
It's
development
never
stuff. And I was
too
like,
late
okay.
to become who you might have been, Broderick.
I know. And I have this idea. I had this thing I was working with for a while, and I had this program that I kind of created, and it wasn't necessarily leadership, but it was leadership. It was really love again, basically.
That's it.
And I used to call it the Professional Human Project. And the reason why I
Great.
call it the Professional Human Project is for like the analogy of your daughter, and the
Yeah.
things, the various practices that you mentioned, is that we are professional humans. It's like we are humans. Why not be a professional human? Why in a
Yeah.
professional, what do? They practice. They
That's our job.
practice
That's
their
why we're
craft.
here. What you're talking about is
Exactly.
what your program is exactly why we're here. Whatever the logo is on whatever paycheck you get, that just puts food in the fridge. Why are you here if it's not to do what you just talked about?
Exactly.
That's
It's
it,
like
man.
why not be a professional human? We're here.
Well,
We
put it
might
out
as
there.
well.
I'll send people to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's awesome. It's awesome to talk to someone who thinks in that way, who thinks that the things that we do, the activities that we engage in, the practices that we do, and how we can overcome those things. So, what are some of those practices that you think are important for uh, uh, cultivating our capacity to live our best
Well,
life?
in 1987, a Dutch client that I was doing some leadership development work for asked me if I would work with one of his executives to help him develop. And his name was Bert, and Bert van Dijk. I can say his name because he tells the story. And I said, Bert, what do you want me to do with you? And he said, John, just do me. And I said, what do you mean? He said, do whatever you would do with me that you think might help me become a better human being and exercise better
Mm.
leadership. And I said, body, mind, spirit. He said, yeah, whatever. And so I remember putting yellow stickies on the kitchen counter. And what are all the things that were significant in my development? It's the first time I'd ever, so I had, running, um, uh, nutrition, centering, using the breath, yoga, all this stuff. all my Gestalt training, persona, shadow, and I just put all this stuff together. And he came, went through this thing. 4 days later, he goes back to Holland, and the next day I get a call from his boss, John. What did you do to Barrett? And I went, oh geez. And he said, I got a guy in Brazil I want to send. So he sent all of his country managers one at a time to come to Spokane, Washington, where me and my little team, yoga teachers, nutrition, we spent 4 days in a hotel room with the executive and their partner. Almost always came with their partner. And that's how this whole thing started. And so I had nutrition. So you asked me what's important to me. Eating as little meat for me. People do what they want. And people live to 100 who eat steak every day. So I'm not saying this is for everybody, but for my being, eat very little red meat. A little bit of I'm sort of a loose vegetarian. My daughter Emma, the dancer, she's a vegan. I mean, serious vegan. But eat lots of fresh food, nuts and seeds, and fresh fruit during the day. Exercise as much as you can. Get oxygen moving in and out of your body. Learn to breathe well, and I use a centering breath a lot. When I was running, that was a combination of meditation. When I swim, same thing now. I'm just breathing. I'm just in. I love the feeling of the water. Get it home in your body, and then create mutually satisfying and meaningful relationships with the people around you. So I want to, physically fit, a Boy Scout, mentally awake, morally, physically straight, whatever the thing is it used to be. And I still believe that. I mean, I'm still trying to be a good man. I was trying to be a good boy now, and then a good scout, and then a good student, and then a good combat officer, and then a good pastor. And now I'm just trying to be the best John that I can be. I'm continuing to discover, what that is.
Isn't that awesome? I love it. You're very holistic and you're a very integrated approach to caring for yourself. God, I resonate with you so much about that because I mean that's my life work is trying to encourage this holistic approach. Taking care of your physical body, taking care of your mental health, your spiritual well-being, your relational
That's it.
self, emotional
That's it.
well-being. Yeah.
I love
And
what
we
you're
have to
doing.
practice.
I love what you're doing. And, the human spirit, that book, Work in the Human Spirit. And when I first came to Poland, the first speech that I gave, my translator stopped me, and she talked for like 5 minutes. And then she said, okay. And later I said, Didi, what was going on? She said, well, Janeczka, we don't have a good word in Polish for spirit. Like the church
Mm.
has a word, spiritus, but as soon as you say that, they think you're a Catholic, and then that takes it down a road that's not what you're trying to say. So it took me a while to explain what human spirit was. We just don't have a concept for that, and it was fabulous for me because it helped me understand.
Yeah.
Thinking that, oh yeah, I know what human spirit is, but the way she explained it helped me. And so I think the human spirit is a major. It's actually fundamental, and we don't have good language for it. And all the religions in the world are trying hard to help us be in that space, but there's unintended consequences as soon as we form an organization around a path. Then the organization drifts off and like any large organization, it has to make money to stay alive, and then you have people that are managers and leaders, and they need salaries and all that, and it's unintended consequences. But every single religion at its heart has a founder who is in the DNA, who has the DNA of what we're talking about here, and then
Hmm.
the followers kind of, we
Yeah.
mess it up.
Yeah, it gets a little complicated.
So I tell people
Yeah,
I'm a Zen Lutheran, and then that usually holds them off for a little while. They have to think about it, and by that time I've like gotten on the bus and left or something. So
exactly. I love it.
we don't have time to talk about this. I mean, we'd have to sit down over a glass of wine or a cup of coffee for about 3 days to figure out. I'm not even sure what it means. I don't even want to know what it means. I just know
Right?
that I'm being held by something bigger than I am, and I don't have really good language for it. I grew up in a tradition that has some language for it, and it's very important. And I think my man Jesus lived in that space. I don't think he tried to be God or anything. He was Jewish, for Pete's sake. He never would have. claim to be God, but he operated in that state where he was super connected with whatever that energy is, which is available to all of us. Which he tried. I think he tried to tell us that. So anyway,
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. I won't go there about institutions and how that can kind of
yeah,
screw that. We got to.
Eh,
That would be
yeah.
great to have that conversation one time. And
Wow, yeah, and I've got a couple buddies. If you want to have a 2 or 3 way conversation, it'd be fun to do that.
oh yeah, that would be great too. Yeah.
In
So
fact,
yeah, John.
yeah, no, go ahead.
No. Go for it.
Well, there's several things that I just realized. You create a safe space for, in this case, me, but I'm sure it's for anybody. You create a safe space for me to think and explore without fear, and like I'm not going to be judged, or I'm not going to be misunderstood. I'm not going to be. You're not trying to take me anywhere. You're trying to follow me rather than take me
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. And that's what I did as a therapist. I thought, as a pastor, my job was not to make anybody into Lutherans or Christians or any whatever that was. My job was just be with these people, hold their hand on the trail for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's what you've done with me here, Broderick. You've just been walking the trail with me, and I just really love it. I love you for that.
Oh,
It's
I
really
love you
beautiful.
too, John. I
Many
did.
people, not
You're
many people
so.
can do that.
Oh, thank you. You're so. It's great when you meet folks that kind of. I think we think very similarly. And that's exactly what I'm attempting to do. I don't. Thank you for conveying that I'm doing that for you. That's what I'm attempting to do is to kind
Yeah,
of follow along with you in your conversation and try to gain some insight, gain some perspective, because you just said something that is so important. Is when you said that when you say you're Zen Lutheran, when you said that I don't really know what that means, but I think that that's it. Do we
me either.
really know? And exactly,
It
so
means
do we really know?
I got the Eastern and the Western spiritual traditions are integrated in me in some way that I continue to that continues to unfold from me.
And it's beyond words. I think that
Yeah,
sometimes that's what this conversation is about. These conversations that I'm trying to have is to allow the guests to express themselves and to convey. And I'm kind of throwing in my ideas to try to work to see if it connects with what the guest is saying. And the reason why is because no one of us knows, and we can no one can really put into language what quote
yeah,
unquote it is. We can only talk around it, and all of this talking around it gives us a sense of an idea about, in this case, what living well means or what the good life is. Because I can say, oh, the good life is love. What does that really mean? I don't know. But let's play with it. Let's play with it. Let's play in a conversation, a dialogue, and see what it means to you and your experience and through your stories, through my stories and this interaction. Then there's some insight to be gained from the conversation. There's an expansion.
yeah,
Not that we
absolutely.
figured it all out. That's
No,
not the
no.
point.
Well, especially we need to be humble about what we call things, because as soon as we
Exactly.
name it, it ain't that. But we
Exactly.
have to call it something in order to talk about
Mm-hmm.
it, right? And look,
Yep.
I just thought of this. In the Navy, we were looking for submarines. My ship was out in the middle of the ocean. We were looking for Russian submarines, and they had a lot of submarines that were diesel, and they had to come up to the surface, just like after this is 1962, so they still had a whole bunch of diesel subs. So when the diesels would come up, they would, to recharge their batteries and get rid of all the junk. The diesel fumes could be detected in the air. And my job as
Mm.
an air controller, we had these airplanes, there were P2Vs and P3s, that had a thing called a sniffer in the front of the airplane. And as soon as it sniffed that the diesel fumes, this thing would go and they would know we got one, and then they would turn away from the smell until the needle dropped. Then they would come back into it, and then it would drop. And so you understand what I'm saying? They were narrowing down every time. They would steer away from it until they knew that's not it. Oh, there it is. That's not it. Oh, there it is. Until that space was getting, and then suddenly they're right on top of it. I think that's what we're doing here.
Yes.
I know when it's not there. I can't name it, but I go, oh, no, we got to turn, we got to slide back a little way. Oh, there it is. There. Oh, no, there it is. And I think maybe our whole life is kind of weaving back and forth. Maybe we never get to be right on top of the sub, but I don't care because I really like this search.
That's it. Oh, it's such a beautiful story and analogy. That's it. That's what I think it is too. Do we ever arrive? I don't care. The
I was just gonna say,
journey,
I don't care. Yeah,
the journey and exploring. And you know what? We get better. You know it's there. You know that
yeah,
submarine is there. You know something is there. And we're
something's there.
finding out, getting closer and
Exactly.
closer. And I think as a species, we are moving in that direction. I think, and I think there are those of us, like you said from the beginning, we have a responsibility to develop and cultivate ourselves, so we can increase the probability, to use your analogy, of finding that sub, to
Yeah.
getting closer
Finding
and
the
closer,
source.
and
See, I would say
yeah,
find the source of the of the
source,
of our energy and the energy that's in life. And I wanted to
yeah,
be an astronomer when I was 12, 13. I built a telescope and stuff like that, but my math skills just weren't going to make it. Now with computers, who cares about math skills? But I'm fascinated with the James Webb telescope, what it's discovering. If I could live another 50 years, I just want to know all the. I read every time I get one of my. I have a couple of news feeds, and every time I get anything about the cosmos, there are trillions and trillions and trillions of galaxies, Broderick,
right,
and every galaxy has a trillion stars. It's like, what the bleep is this? I mean, and here we are in
right,
this little teeny little blue marble over in the corner of this one galaxy, and we think
mm-hmm,
we're hot stuff. and
exactly,
and there's something going on here that's bigger than all of us. I don't know what it is,
exactly.
but it's a
Don't know
lot
what it
bigger
is.
than we are. Yeah,
That's right. And if we
unbelievable.
keep, it's unbelievable. And if we keep searching and keep having these kinds of conversation, being humble, being, having that exploratory mind,
That's
and
it.
we get closer. We get closer some way, somehow. We learn how to love better, right? We learn how
That's
to
it.
bring more beauty and light into the world in the process. To me,
My
that's the
book was
pro.
called
That's
Five
it.
Questions. You mentioned my book called Five Questions, and they're really great questions. What's confronting me? What tigers are coming at me? What am I
Hmm.
bringing to that encounter with the tiger? My hopes and fears and my history. Three, what's been running me? How am I like a hamster in a wheel where everything's the same? Question four is what calls me? What will break me out of this meaningless cycle? What calls out from inside? What gifts do I have that call out to be expressed? And what need in the world calls my attention? And then question five is what will unleash me? How do I operate? What do I do with this? When I leave it. And so I have a section in my book that goes like, why did you come up with five questions, John? What the world is looking for answers. And I said the problem with an answer is you stop looking.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, there's a whole paragraph there, which we don't have time to get into. Is there any way that when you put this out there, you can put a link in case people want to get my book or something like that? I don't
Oh
want to
yeah,
put
absolutely.
my marketing hat on here while we're talking about that'd be cool in case anybody wants to, you know,
Oh, absolutely.
check it
Those are
out.
great questions. Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah,
Absolutely, for
cool.
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
if you ever decide you don't want to do what you're doing or you want to add something, I think you have the DNA to be a facilitator in our program. So you call me and where do you live? Where do you operate out of?
In the Bay Area in
Oh,
California.
cool. We got three facilitators in the Bay Area. I will hook you up with them. And
Sounds
that's something you might want to just look into, Broderick, because you're such an extraordinary human. I really am. I've forgotten how we met, who put us together, but this is how it happens. I'm really, really grateful.
yeah, me too. Yeah, I think you meet someone that thinks very similar to you. That's always
Yeah,
refreshing and
isn't that
rewarding.
amazing?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love what you're doing, John. I love your
Yeah,
your thinking, and I knew it. I knew through this conversation that there's a lot there that you've touched on, that we've dabbled in.
Well, I have
That
a
that
webinar too, and I want you to be a guest. I do once a month or something, and I'd love to have you on my little thing. I'm just getting started. You've really got this thing nailed down, man. So don't edit this out. When you edit, I hope everybody gets to hear us knocking this around here.
yeah, I won't. That's one thing I think listeners know, that for me, I think it's important to just have a natural, organic conversation. I don't like when
Great,
stuff gets overly produced. I just don't like that. This is a
absolutely, amen,
podcast,
brother.
and what we're doing here is exploring. And I
Yeah,
hope we're modeling exploring. We're,
yeah,
have these conversations, these challenging conversations. These challenging conversations forces us to contend with our lives, forces us to look at things in different ways, and to be open and receptive to what's possible, to transform our way of thinking and seeing things. All of that is that's a beautiful thing.
and that's why
Um,
we're here. That's what I'm saying.
exactly.
We
See,
both agree that's people say, "What's the meaning of life?" Well, here we are.
there it is.
Yeah,
Exactly. And I love how you say, there's no answer. It's always questions.
yeah,
It's always, if we,
yeah,
I love it. How, I give that analogy. I say it slightly different than you, about we're just this one species that's, with this brain that we have, the brain that we do have, 200,000 more or less years, and we
yeah,
think we know everything. That is
yeah,
crazy. I mean,
yeah.
when you sit and you think about it, in terms of the how old the universe is, the amount of galaxies in the universe, to go around and think that we know everything without language,
Yeah,
it's just
right.
insane. It's
Yeah.
just like, come on, guys, we get it together.
I
That's
mean, this is what I love about the Hubble telescope. I mean, nobody knew this was going to happen, but
yeah,
it's showing us things that we just absolutely cannot explain. We simply do not have any way of explaining what it's showing us.
yeah,
And I just love that because it's putting us in our place. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? It's like,
exactly.
sit the bleep down and pay attention.
That's it.
Don't think
I
you
love that.
understand.
I love that you just said something. You keep throwing all this stuff in, John. That means a long life of experience in doing this work. Is sit down and pay attention.
Yeah,
We
right.
forget that sometimes.
Yeah.
The importance of just, okay, let me just shut up for a minute and pay attention.
Yogi
Look,
Berra, the great philosopher, he said, you can hear a lot just by listening, you know.
yeah, exactly. Well, John, this has been awesome. I knew it was going to be awesome, and we're coming to a close here on the hour mark. I keep these around an hour, more or less. You can go a little bit a little over for
Wow,
sure.
it has been an hour, hasn't it? Oh my gosh.
Right.
Time flies when you're, in the zone.
I know, and I can, man, we can go, we could definitely do the Joe Rogan
Well,
type. I think
we
what we'll
could
do,
talk.
we'll come.
There's two or three other topics. We could talk about
Oh
organizational
man,
change. We could talk about leadership. We could talk about spiritual development. We could talk about,
exactly.
there's so, I mean, anytime you want to talk, man, I'm ready to go. Cause
We're
I learned, there's a saying, when you heat your house with wood, you're warmed three times: when you chop the wood, when you burn the wood, when you haul away the ashes, right? And
I love it.
when I was a pastor, I realized that when it was time for preaching, my spirit was warmed three times by the sermon process. One was preparing the sermon, figuring out what's God, the universe, trying to say to me in this story here. And once I got it, it was like, thank you. I don't need to even talk about it. So it was, I was, that was, and then I get to talk about it. And then when I talk about it to the congregation, I'm learning more because I just had bullet points. So as I'm talking about it, I'm getting even more out of the story. And then
Hmm.
after church, talking to people about it. So what I miss about the preaching thing is this: my spirit got warmed three times. Like, it'd be so cool when this is over to turn around with some people and have a conversation about it. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that this process that you've created is going to warm people's hearts, minds, and spirits really well. So this is beautiful.
I love that you just said that. That's exactly the process. I didn't think of it that way. I like that though. I do. I'm warm just having a
Great.
conversation. I'm gonna do like a little bit some edits. I'm warm. I look at
Yeah.
it again, and then
Yeah.
I go. And the goal is what you just said. Is that even you as a listener, you're listening to this, but then go and have a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
It may pop up. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that John
Yeah.
mentioned in this conversation. A lot of pieces to the puzzle, and we will have more conversations on this platform to really unpack those things. All those things that you just mentioned. I love this, the whole spiritual development stuff. I think we can definitely go pretty deep in that area for sure. And I
Well,
think this is
I've
what it's
got a
about.
hundred, Broderick. I've got 150 little videos of me, telling these little stories, little chunks, on my website. And I don't know what I mean. I don't have a business. I don't know how to have a business. I just know I got some material that people find useful. I'm trying to figure out how to do it. And so if people go to wiseratwork.com, how to be wiser at work. There's a bunch of stuff, and it's free right now because we're trying to figure out what to do with it. So if people want to go and have access to those, some of the stories I told here and some of the other stuff, they're absolutely, like the Phantom story and stuff like that. They're welcome to go.
Yeah, and in the show notes, I'll make sure I put all the websites,
Great, that's
and
cool. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the links to your books and the website for sure. So we're coming to the close. I do want to ask this final question, and you know, I love this question because it gives the audience something to reflect on, and that is, it can be whatever you want. It can be a question, but what are your final thoughts? What would you like to leave the audience with, in terms of their reflection on what living well means?
Man, I would say trust your gut, trust your heart, follow any questions that come to you to the end. Continue in your self development is get curious about yourself because I'm convinced that as we go deep into ourselves, we're naturally find that we need to be in service in order to be a whole. Like we're not that Ubuntu, the African concept that I am who I am only in interaction with the people around us. So I would say keep 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 continuing to be curious. I mean it's something that's contagious. I think instead of knowing everything, which is what school teaches us to do, you get an A in the upper right hand corner of the piece of paper means that you were able to tell back to the teacher what the teacher told you to tell them. I mean, it's such a. I mean, we have to. I understand why, but boy, what a missing. Because what if we got graded on our questions? That's a great question. You
Mm.
get an A on that question. See, so I want to encourage people to ask the questions of yourself, of any teachers that you run across, and as soon as you exhaust that teacher, another one will show up. And just keep being curious about who you are, who other people are, and what this world is all about. What the heck? So I think the world needs not knowers but learners, not people who know
Wow.
everything, but people who are curious about everything. Anyway, I don't know. It doesn't
Amazing.
feel very profound, Broderick, but that's what came to me. So
Oh, that's very profound. That's it. Boy, it's deep, particularly in our culture. It's very deep. Thank you so much, John. There are going to be many more conversations. You are such a you're a gift. You're a wonderful human being. You've had such a rich life experience, and I look forward to just sitting at your feet more and listening to your stories and hear more about how you see things. You are a teacher, and it's a privilege and an honor to sit by you. And I know we're doing it over the internet, and you're across the globe,
isn't that amazing?
but I can sit at your feet even still, and be a witness, be a listener, be a student, and learn from a wise elder about
Mm.
a life and how to live. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Dziękujemy, which is Polish for we thank you. They always say the plural, and I always wonder who the we is. But I like it because it implies that I'm a community. I'm not just a single person. So the my at the end means it's plural. So dziękujemy is we thank you. So dziękujemy, Roderick. Bardzo dziękujemy. Thank you very, very much for this amazing conversation, and I'm happy to talk or actually listen to you anytime.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own views of the good life. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, please follow, write a review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated.